Today we're diving into the world of Sega CD, one of the most underrated consoles in gaming history. While the Sega CD often gets overshadowed by the massive success of its cartridge-based counterparts, there's one thing that can't be overlooked: its game-changing use of Red Book audio. But what exactly does that mean for us as gamers? Well, the Sega CD was the first major console to fully utilize CD-quality audio, meaning that the soundtracks of its games were no longer limited by the low-quality MIDI compositions that were played back using the primitive sound chips of the day. For the first time, composers could bring their full, rich-sounding music to life in games, and some of the greatest soundtracks of all time were created as a result. In this video, we'll celebrate 5 incredible soundtracks from the Sega CD library. I'm not saying that these are the best games on the system, but I would argue that their soundtracks are some of the best around. The samples in this video are from the North American releases, which have some variation compared to those from other regions. This video will also be a bit different from my normal format, so be sure to take a second to put on your headphones and turn up the volume. Join me as we listen in and discover how these soundtracks elevated the gaming experience in this Retro Gaming Boss retrospective about the real unsung heroes on the Sega CD.
Let the beat rock.
Let's start with my personal favorite, Lunar, the Silver Star, a title that will forever be remembered for its incredible music and emotional depth. This game was actually the highest-selling title for the system in Japan, and was also number 2 in other markets. The epic and beautiful soundtrack was composed primarily by Noriyuki Iwadare and others, and provided an enthralling journey from start to finish. As you can hear, Lunar's lush and orchestral scores really conveyed the highs and lows of the adventure. It's rare to find a game where the music is so closely tied to the narrative. Without the power of the Sega CD's audio capabilities, these songs would have been reproduced by simplistic beeps and blips in their 16-bit renditions. Luckily, players, myself included, were blown away by the full symphonic score that enriched the storytelling in a way that hadn't been done before. Take a listen and let me know if you agree. Next up, we have the classic you all know and love, Sonic CD. This version didn't just give us one of the best Sonic titles of all time, it also delivered an unforgettable soundtrack. The composer? Spencer Nilsson, who was the head of Sega of America's audio department when this game was released back in November of 1993. This composer created one of the most vibrant, energetic, and memorable soundtracks of the early 90s. The music in Sonic CD was also dynamic, since it changed based on the time travel mechanic in the game, reflecting its innovation and clever design. The Sega CD's ability to play back such high-fidelity audio gave the soundtrack a real sense of presence, with full instrumentation and clarity that was unheard of on other consoles. While this level of quality may be considered to be standard in games today, we can't overlook how revolutionary and impactful it was at the time. This game's soundtrack stood out as more than just background noise. It became part of the game's identity. Players were transported into this colorful world, not only through the visuals, but also through the positive energy and feelings produced by the music itself. Let's take a listen to a few of my favorite tracks. For number 3, we have the excellent run-and-gun shooter, Terminator. Based on the iconic movie franchise, the game took a much darker and more intense approach than prior titles, and the soundtrack matched it perfectly. The legendary guitarist Tommy Tallarico performed the score for this gritty, action-packed title. The use of Red Book audio brought a cinematic quality that previously would have been impossible using older formats. The Terminator soundtrack isn't just there to set the tone, it becomes a character in itself. The heavy synth beats, industrial sounds, and orchestral compositions immerse players in a dystopian future, just like the movie. The Sega CD allowed for an unprecedented level of realism with its audio, making Terminator's music as memorable as the game itself. Here's a sampling for your enjoyment. Moving on to number 4 brings us to Microcosm, a game that's often forgotten in the annals of Sega CD history, but absolutely deserves attention for its innovative soundtrack. Composed and performed by the English keyboardist Rick Wakeman, the music in Microcosm is futuristic, ambient, and perfect for the game's edgy sci-fi environment. The game was set inside a microscopic world, and the soundtrack captures that sense of wonder and surrealism with an experimental electronic sound. The CD audio brought us a complex layering of sound, which made every exploration feel like an auditory adventure through the unknown. Microcosm's soundtrack leaned heavily on techno beats with a pulsing tempo. It was a unique experiment in how this new audio format could elevate the gaming experience into something more engaging than ever before. Let's check it out. And rounding out the group at number 5, we have the fan favorite Silpheed, a high-speed space shooter that pushed the limits of what the Sega CD could handle. Composed by Eri Kamijo, the soundtrack for Silpheed merged upbeat electronic and orchestral elements, giving the game a super vibe. The pulse-pounding beats had players feeling the adrenaline of the intergalactic dogfights as if they were right there in the cockpit. The soundtrack in Silpheed wasn't just a backdrop to the action, it was a constant presence enhancing the thrill of every space battle. The sound effects and music worked in perfect harmony, creating a seamless experience that made the game feel like a high-budget sci-fi film. Here's some of its best. Lunar, the Silver Star, Sonic CD, Terminator, Microcosm, and Silpheed are all prime examples of how the Sega CD's Red Book audio output helped redefine the gaming experience. It marked the first time that video games could offer studio-quality music, enhancing the atmosphere and the emotional impact. The brilliant artists behind these soundtracks understood the power of music in gaming, and these soundtracks still hold up today as masterpieces in their own right. So next time you fire up one of these classics, take a moment to really appreciate and hear the music, because after all, it's more than just an extra layer. It's a defining part of the experience. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Sega CD's incredible game soundtracks, be sure to give me a like and subscribe for more content celebrating the unsung heroes of gaming. Got a favorite Sega CD soundtrack of your own? Let me know about it in the comments below. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out, reminding you to keep it old school, keep it loud, and keep enjoying those amazing Sega CD soundtracks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. I'm gonna leave you with a quick honorable mention as well, from the Sega CD game AH3 Thunderstrike.